6 months had passed since the ceremony on Velka Prime. 6 months since Lyra had been given away like a piece of meat. 6 months since her life had changed forever. She stood in the observation deck of Earth Station 7, looking out at the stars. The station had become home. The apartment had become sanctuary. And Devour had become something she never expected. Family. It was not always easy. There were still nights when the nightmares came, dark dreams of chains and cold eyes and the certainty of death. There were still moments when the old fear crept back, whispering lies in her ear. But those moments were fewer now. And when they came, she was no longer alone. Devour had received his final orders. He was being transferred to Earth, to the homeland he had missed for so many years. And Lyra was going with him. "Are you ready?" he asked, walking up beside her. She turned to look at him. He was wearing his formal uniform, clean and pressed, decorated with medals from the war. He looked different from the tired soldier who had accepted her as a gift. He looked at peace. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "I've never been to a planet before. What if the other humans don't like me? What if they're afraid of me?" Devour smiled. "Then we'll teach them. Just like I taught you. One meal at a time." It was an old joke between them now. Food had become their language, a way of sharing and caring without needing words. Devour had taught her to cook human dishes, and she had taught him some Vulcan recipes. Together, they had created something new. Something that belonged to both of them. The transport ship arrived 2 days later. It was a large vessel, designed to carry soldiers and supplies across the galaxy. Lyra walked up the ramp with Devour beside her, her small bag of belongings clutched in her hands. The other passengers stared. Some with curiosity, some with suspicion, a few with open hostility. One man stepped forward. He was tall and broad, with a scarred face and angry eyes. "What's that?" he demanded, pointing at Lyra. "Why are we letting the enemy on our ship?" Devour's expression did not change. "She's not the enemy. She's my family." "Family?" The man laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You call that thing family? It's a Vulcan. They killed my brother. They killed thousands of our people. And now you're bringing one to Earth?" Other passengers murmured in agreement. The atmosphere grew tense. Lyra felt her heart begin to race. The old fear was coming back. But before Devour could respond, Lyra stepped forward. "Your brother died in the war," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I'm sorry for your loss, truly, but I did not kill him. I was a prisoner, just like many others. I did not choose to fight. I did not choose any of this." The man's eyes widened. He had not expected her to speak. He had not expected her to sound so human. "The war is over," Lyra continued. "We can spend the rest of our lives hating each other, or we can try to build something better. I choose to build. I choose to hope. That is what Devour taught me. That is what humans do." Silence fell over the passengers. The man with the scarred face stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stepped back. "Fine," he muttered. "But I'm watching you." He walked away, and the tension broke. The other passengers returned to their seats, still whispering, but no longer threatening. Devour looked at Lyra with pride in his eyes. "That was brave. I learned from the best," she said. They found their seats and settled in for the long journey. The ship lifted off, rising through the darkness toward the stars. Through the window, Lyra watched Earth Station 7 grow smaller and smaller until it was just a tiny point of light. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Lyra met more human soldiers, families, children. Some were kind. Some were cautious. A few refused to speak to her at all. But she did not let it discourage her. She smiled and nodded and offered help where she could. Slowly, the walls began to come down. By the time they reached Earth, she had made 3 friends. A young girl named Gia, who loved to hear stories about Velka Prime, an old woman named Sumhi, who reminded Lyra of her mother, and a quiet soldier named Donghyun, who had lost his arm in the war but still found reasons to laugh. "Welcome to Earth," Taewoo said as the ship descended through the clouds. Lyra pressed her face against the window. Below her, the planet spread out like a painting. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, mountains and valleys and rivers and lakes. It was more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. They landed in a small village by the sea, Taewoo's home. The air smelled of salt and flowers. The sun was warm on her skin. Birds sang in the trees. An old woman was waiting at the edge of the landing pad. She had gray hair and kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. When she saw Taewoo, she opened her arms wide. "My grandson," she said. "You've come home." Taewoo ran to her and embraced her. They held each other for a long time, crying and laughing at the same time. Lyra stood back, not wanting to intrude on the moment, but then the old woman looked up. Her eyes found Lyra, and her smile grew even wider. "And who is this?" she asked. Taewoo turned. "Grandmother, this is Lyra. She's my family now." The old woman walked toward Lyra. Her steps were slow but steady. When she reached her, she took Lyra's hands in her own. "Family," she repeated. "Then you are my family too. Welcome home, child." The warmth of her touch, the kindness in her voice, it was too much. Lyra began to cry. Not tears of fear or pain, but tears of joy. Tears of belonging. In the weeks that followed, Lyra discovered what it truly meant to have a home. She helped in the garden, growing flowers and vegetables. She learned to cook the local dishes, spicy soups, and sweet rice cakes. She walked along the beach at sunset, feeling the sand between her toes, and she became Taewoo's fiercest defender. When people came to visit, curious about the alien girl living in the village, Lyra greeted them with warmth and patience. When children asked questions, she answered honestly and kindly. When old wounds from the war caused tension, she stepped forward with calm words and open hands. She became a bridge, a living proof that peace was possible, that enemies could become friends, that understanding could replace fear. One evening, Taewoo found her sitting on the cliff above the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting down beside her. Lyra smiled. "I'm thinking about how strange the universe is. 6 months ago, I thought you were going to eat me. Now I can't imagine my life without you." Taewoo laughed. "Life is full of surprises." "Yes," she agreed. "It is." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The first stars began to appear, tiny points of light in the darkening sky. "Taewoo," Lyra said softly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For everything. For saving me. For teaching me. For giving me a home." She paused. "For being my family." Taewoo reached out and took her hand. His grip was warm and steady, the same grip that had held her through nightmares and guided her through difficult days. "You saved yourself," he said. "I just showed you the door. You were the one brave enough to walk through it." Lyra squeezed his hand. The stars reflected in her golden eyes like tiny flames. She had come to this planet as a gift, a piece of property to be consumed and forgotten. But she had become something more. A daughter, a sister, a friend, a bridge between worlds. And as the night settled over the village by the sea, she knew that she would spend the rest of her life protecting this strange, wonderful, complicated family of humans, just as they had protected her. A month had passed since Lyra arrived on Earth Station 7. She barely recognized herself anymore. She had gained weight. Her cheeks were fuller, her eyes brighter. The constant trembling in her hands had stopped. She no longer jumped at every sudden sound or flinched when Tae-woo walked into a room. She had even started to smile. It happened slowly at first. A small curl of her lips when Tae-woo told a joke. A quiet laugh when he tried to cook something new and failed. A warm feeling in her chest when he remembered her favorite foods or played her favorite songs. But with the comfort came questions. Questions that had been building inside her since the very first day. Questions she was finally brave enough to ask. It happened on a quiet evening. They were sitting in the living room, watching a video about animals on Earth. Lyra was fascinated by the creatures so different from anything on Velka Prime. She especially loved the small furry ones called cats. "Tae-woo," she said suddenly. "Can I ask you something?" He paused the video. "Of course." She took a deep breath. The words had been sitting in her throat for weeks. Now they came rushing out. "Why didn't you eat me?" Tae-woo blinked. Then he laughed a short, surprised sound. But when he saw the serious look on her face, the laughter faded. "You really believed that, didn't you?" he said. "All this time. You really thought I was going to—" "Yes." Lyra looked down at her hands. "My people told stories about humans. Terrible stories. They said you were monsters. Beasts that walked on two legs. They said you had no mercy, no kindness, no soul." Tae-woo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "And now? Do you still believe those stories?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, but I don't understand. If humans are not monsters, then why do the stories exist? Why would my people lie?" "Maybe they weren't lying," Tae-woo said. "Maybe they were just wrong." He stood up and walked to the window. The stars stretched out before him, endless and cold. "Humans have done terrible things," he said. "We've fought wars. We've conquered planets. We've caused so much pain and death that sometimes I wonder if we deserve to exist at all." He turned back to face her. "But we've also done beautiful things. We've created music and art and poetry. We've built cities and gardens and places of peace. We've loved and laughed and hoped, even when hope seemed impossible. We are not one thing, Lyra. We are everything. We contain multitudes." That's a line from an old human poem. It means that we are capable of great evil and great good, sometimes at the same time. Lyra listened carefully. She was beginning to understand, not just the words, but the truth behind them. "So the stories about humans eating other species," she began. "Lies," Tae-woo said firmly. "Or maybe just fear. When you're afraid of something, it's easy to believe the worst. Your leaders probably spread those stories to make your people hate us, to make them willing to fight and die in a war. They did fight," Lyra said quietly. "And they did die. Millions of them, I know." Tae-woo's voice was heavy. "I was there. I saw it. I caused some of it. And I'll carry that weight for the rest of my life." He sat down next to her, closer than before, close enough that she could feel the warmth coming from his body. "But that's why I took you in," he said. "That's why I couldn't leave you with those monsters who gave you away like property. Because I've seen enough death. I've caused enough pain. I wanted to do something good. Something that mattered." Lyra felt tears burning in her eyes. "I was so afraid," she whispered. "Every day, every moment. I was waiting to die. And when you were kind to me, I thought it was a trick. I thought you were just fattening me up." Tae-woo reached out and took her hand. His grip was gentle but firm. "I will never hurt you," he said. "Do you understand? No matter what happens, no matter how hard things get, I will never, ever hurt you." The tears fell now, streaming down her pale cheeks. But they were not tears of fear. They were tears of relief. Tears of release. Why? She asked. Why do you protect those who cannot protect themselves? What do you gain from it? Tae-woo smiled. It was a sad smile, but a real one. That's what makes us human, Lyra. We don't protect the weak because we gain something. We protect them because it's right. Because life is precious. Because every being deserves a chance to live and be happy. Even your enemies? Especially our enemies. The war is over. You're not my enemy anymore. You never were. You were just a scared girl caught in the middle of something she never asked for. Lyra squeezed his hand. The warmth spread from her fingers through her whole body. She felt safe. Truly safe. For the first time in her life. I was wrong about humans, she said. I was so wrong about everything. Your people were wrong, Tae-woo said. But you learned. You changed. That takes courage. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're afraid. They sat together in silence, watching the stars spin slowly outside the window. Lyra thought about everything she had learned. Everything she had felt. Everything she had become. She was not the same girl who had arrived in chains. That girl was gone, lost somewhere between fear and hope. In her place was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who understood that the universe was bigger and stranger and more wonderful than she had ever imagined. Tae-woo, she said finally. What happens now? He looked at her. What do you mean? I'm not your property. You've said that many times. But I have nowhere to go. No family. No home. So what happens to me? Tae-woo considered the question carefully. Then he spoke. You stay with me. Not because you have to. Not because you have no choice. But because we're family now. Maybe not by blood, but by something stronger. By choice. Family, Lyra repeated. The word felt strange on her tongue. But also right. Also true. If you want, Tae-woo added quickly. You don't have to decide now. You can think about it. Take your time. I just want you to know that you have a place here. A home. For as long as you want it. Lyra did not need to think. She had already made her decision. She had made it weeks ago. In tiny moments she had not even noticed. In shared meals and quiet conversations. In gentle hands and kind eyes. In songs that made her cry and jokes that made her laugh. I want to stay, she said. I want to be your family. Tae-woo smiled. A real smile this time, bright and warm and full of something that looked like joy. Then you are, he said. Welcome home, Lyra. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. 2 weeks passed on Earth Station 7. The apartment that had once felt like a cage began to feel like something else. Lyra was not sure what to call it. Home seemed too strong a word. But it was close. Tae-woo had started teaching her things. Small things at first. How to work the lights. How to turn on the water. How to use the screen on the wall to watch videos and read books. Then bigger things. Human words. Human customs. Human ways of living. This is called music, Tae-woo said one evening. He pressed a button, and sound filled the room. It was unlike anything Lyra had ever heard. Soft and slow, with voices that rose and fell like waves on a shore. She sat very still, her golden eyes wide. What is it for? For listening, Tae-woo said. For feeling. Music makes humans happy. Or sad. Or peaceful. It depends on the song. You create sounds to feel things? Yes, Lyra thought about this. On Velka Prime, sounds were for communication only. Speaking, warning, crying. The idea of making sounds just for pleasure was strange and beautiful. Play more, she said softly. Tae-woo smiled and pressed another button. A different song began, this one faster, with drums and guitars. His foot began to tap against the floor, keeping time with the beat. Lyra watched him. She had never seen him so relaxed. The hard lines of his face softened. His shoulders dropped. For a moment, he did not look like a soldier. He looked like a person. "Do humans dance?" she asked. Tae-woo laughed. It was a warm sound, full and real. "Some do. I'm not very good at it. Show me." He shook his head. "Maybe another time." But there was a small smile on his lips that stayed there for the rest of the night. As the days continued, Lyra learned more and more about human culture. She learned that humans cooked food together as a way of showing love. She learned that they gave each other gifts on special days. She learned that they held hands when they were happy and hugged when they were sad. She learned that humans were not simple creatures. They were complicated and messy and full of contradictions. They could fight terrible wars and then write poetry about peace. They could destroy entire planets and then build gardens to remember the dead. One afternoon, Tae-woo took her to the observation deck of the station. It was a large room with windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. Through the glass, she could see Earth, a great blue and green ball floating in the darkness. "That's my home," Tae-woo said quietly. "I was born there, in a small village by the sea. I haven't been back in 5 years." Lyra looked at the planet. It was beautiful, so different from the gray deserts of Velka Prime. "Do you miss it?" "Every day." "Then why did you leave?" Tae-woo was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. "Because there was a war, and someone had to fight it. Someone had to protect the people who couldn't protect themselves. Like me?" He turned to look at her. His dark eyes were gentle. "Yes, like you." Lyra felt something warm spread through her chest. She did not have a name for it. It was not quite happiness, not quite comfort. It was something new, something fragile. "Will you ever go back?" she asked. "Someday, when my service is finished." He paused. "You could come with me, if you wanted." The offer surprised her. She had never thought about what would happen when they left the station. She had assumed that someday he would grow tired of her, that he would send her away or give her to someone else. But the look in his eyes said otherwise. He meant it. He truly wanted her to stay. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you take me to your home?" Tae-woo thought for a moment. "Because you deserve to see the ocean, to feel grass under your feet, to know that there's more to the universe than war and pain." Lyra did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She simply stood beside him and watched the earth turn slowly in the void. That night, she could not sleep. Her mind was full of thoughts, swirling and spinning like leaves in a storm. She got out of bed and walked to the living room. Tae-woo was there, sitting by the window. He was holding a small object in his hands, a photograph. In the picture, a woman smiled at the camera. She had kind eyes and dark hair. "Who is she?" Lyra asked. Tae-woo did not look up. "My mother. She died 3 years ago. I wasn't there. I was fighting in some distant star system while she took her last breath." Lyra sat down next to him. She did not touch him, but she stayed close. "I'm sorry. She would have liked you," Tae-woo said. "She always said I was too serious, that I needed someone to remind me how to smile." Lyra looked at the photograph. The woman did have a kind face, a face full of warmth and love. "Tell me about her," Lyra said. So Tae-woo talked. He talked about his mother's cooking, how she made the best rice cakes in the village. He talked about her garden, how she grew flowers in every color. He talked about her laugh, how it could fill a room and make everyone around her feel happy. He talked until the station's lights began to brighten, signaling morning. And when he finally stopped, there were tears on his cheeks. Lyra did not know why she did it. She did not plan it, but she reached out and took his hand. His skin was warm and rough, so different from her own smooth fingers. Taewoo looked at their joined hands. Then he looked at her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "Thank you," he said finally. "For what?" "For listening. For being here." He squeezed her hand gently. "I haven't talked about her in a long time. It hurts, but it also helps." Lyra understood. She thought of her own mother, a distant memory now, lost in the fog of childhood. She thought of her sisters, her friends, everyone she had left behind when the Emperor chose her as a gift. "I had a family too," she said. "Before the war. Before everything. Tell me about them." So she talked. She talked about her mother's songs, lullabies, that drifted through the night like silver threads. She talked about her sisters, 3 of them, all older, all wiser. She talked about the purple flowers that grew outside her window and the way the moons looked when they were full. She talked until her voice grew tired and her eyes grew heavy. And when she finally stopped, she realized that something had changed. The fear was still there, buried deep inside her. But it was smaller now, quieter, and in its place, something new was growing. Trust. She trusted this strange human soldier. She trusted his kindness and his sadness and his gentle hands. She trusted that he would not hurt her. It was a fragile thing, this trust. But it was real. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. 3 days passed on the ship. 3 days of silence. 3 days of waiting. Lyra remained in the corner of the room. She moved only when necessary to use the small washing room, to accept the food that Taewoo left for her. But she never spoke. She never slept. She simply watched and waited for the end. Tae-Woo did not know what to do with her. He tried talking to her, but she never answered. He tried giving her better food, but she barely ate. He tried giving her space, but she only seemed more afraid when he was not in the room. On the 4th day, the ship landed on Earth Station 7. It was a large military base floating in orbit above Earth. Soldiers came and went, carrying supplies and weapons. Ships docked and launched. The air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen. Tae-Woo was given a small apartment on the station while he waited for his final orders. It had 2 rooms, a bedroom, and a living space with a tiny kitchen. It was not much, but it was better than the cramped quarters on the ship. "This is where we'll stay for now," Taewoo told Lyra as they entered. "You can have the bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch." Lyra looked around the apartment with wide eyes. She had never seen human living spaces before. Everything was so strange. The furniture was thick and heavy, built for creatures much larger than her. The lights were bright and warm. There were pictures on the walls, images of mountains and oceans and forests. She did not understand why a predator would want pictures of nature. Did humans hunt in these places? Did they chase their prey through the trees? Tae-Woo walked to the kitchen and opened a cabinet. "I'm going to make some food. Real food, not those dry rations from the ship. Do you like soup?" Lyra did not answer. She did not know what soup was. Tae-Woo sighed and began pulling out ingredients, vegetables, dried meat, spices. He moved with practiced ease, cutting and chopping and stirring. The smells that filled the apartment were unlike anything Lyra had experienced before. Her stomach made a noise. She pressed her hands against it, embarrassed. Tae-Woo smiled a small, tired smile. "Sit down. It'll be ready soon." He pointed to a chair at the small table. Lyra hesitated. The chair looked dangerous. Too solid. Too close to him. But her legs were weak from days of crouching in corners. So she walked slowly to the chair and sat down, her body tense, ready to run. Tae-Woo brought 2 bowls to the table. He placed one in front of her and kept one for himself. The soup was thick and colorful, filled with chunks of vegetables and strips of meat. "Eat," he said. "You need strength." Lyra looked at the bowl. Then she looked at him. "Why?" she whispered. It was the first word she had spoken since they met. Tae-woo blinked. "Why what? Why do you feed me?" Her voice was small and broken. "Why make me strong? Do you want the meat to be better?" For a long moment, Tae-woo just stared at her. Then understanding filled his eyes, and his face changed. The tiredness was gone. In its place was something that looked like pain. "Lyra," he said softly, "I'm not going to eat you." She shook her head. "That is what humans do. My people told me. You eat the weak. You consume those who cannot fight. That is why you win wars. That is why everyone fears you." Tae-woo put down his spoon. He leaned forward, his dark eyes meeting her golden ones. "Listen to me carefully. Humans do not eat other intelligent beings. We don't eat Vulcans. We don't eat anyone. That is not what we are. Then what are you?" The question hung in the air. Tae-woo thought about it for a long time. How could he explain? How could he make her understand? "We are many things," he said finally. "We can be cruel. We can be violent. But we can also be kind. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what soldiers like me are supposed to do." Lyra wanted to believe him. Something deep inside her wanted to believe that this strange, quiet man was telling the truth. But years of fear do not disappear in a single moment. "Eat your soup," Tae-woo said gently. "It's getting cold." She picked up the spoon. Her hands were still shaking. She brought the soup to her lips and tasted it. It was warm. It was delicious. It was the best thing she had ever eaten. Tears rolled down her pale cheeks. She could not stop them. She did not know why she was crying. The soup, the kindness, the confusion, it was all too much. Tae-woo did not say anything. He simply ate his own soup and let her cry. Over the next few days, Lyra slowly began to change. She still watched Tae-woo constantly, but the fear in her eyes was different now. It was mixed with something else. Curiosity, perhaps. Or wonder. She noticed that he never locked the doors. She could leave any time she wanted. But where would she go? She had no money, no friends, no way to survive in this strange human world. She noticed that he always gave her the best food. The freshest fruit. The softest bread. He ate the leftovers himself, never complaining. She noticed that he slept lightly, waking at every small sound. Dark circles formed under his eyes. He was exhausted, but he kept checking on her, making sure she was safe. One night, she woke up screaming. A nightmare had found her memories of the Emperor's cold smile, the silver chains around her wrists, the knowledge that she was being sent to die. Tae-woo was beside her in seconds. But he did not touch her. He simply knelt by the bed and spoke softly. "You're safe," he said. "It was just a dream. You're safe." She stared at him, her heart pounding. "Why do you care?" "Because you're under my protection now," he said. "And I don't abandon people I'm supposed to protect." Lyra did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She simply lay back down and closed her eyes, listening to his footsteps as he returned to the couch. That night, for the first time since leaving Velka Prime, she slept without dreaming. In the morning, she found Tae-woo in the kitchen, making breakfast. He looked tired, more tired than usual. But when he saw her standing in the doorway, he smiled. "Good morning," he said. "I made eggs. I hope you like them." Lyra walked to the table and sat down. She looked at the plate of food in front of her. Then she looked at him. "Thank you," she said. The words felt strange on her tongue. She had never thanked a human before. She had never thanked anyone before. Taiwu's smile grew wider. "You're welcome." They ate in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not the silence of fear. The silence of two people slowly learning to share space. Lyra still did not understand humans. She did not understand kindness without purpose or food without price. But she was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, she had a lot to learn. And perhaps that was not such a bad thing. The war had lasted 7 long years. When it finally ended, the Vulcan Empire knelt before Earth's forces. Their ships burned in the cold darkness of space. Their armies had fallen. Their pride was broken. Sergeant Park Tae-woo stood in the victory hall on the planet Velka Prime. He was tired. His bones ached. His heart felt heavy with the memories of friends he had lost. All he wanted was to go home, to see the green mountains of his homeland, to smell the ocean air one more time. But first, there was this ceremony. The Vulcan leaders walked in a line before the human soldiers. They were tall beings with pale blue skin and large silver eyes. Their bodies were thin and delicate, like glass figures that might break with a single touch. They bowed low, their long robes dragging on the marble floor. "We offer tribute," the Vulcan Emperor said. His voice was soft and full of shame. "To show our respect. To prove we accept defeat." Tae-woo did not care about tribute. He wanted sleep. He wanted peace. He wanted to forget the sound of weapons and the screams of dying men. The Emperor raised his hand. Servants came forward, carrying boxes of rare metals and glowing crystals. Other soldiers received their gifts with smiles and laughter. But when the servants stopped in front of Tae-woo, there was no box. Instead, there was a girl. She was small, even for a Vulcan. Her skin was the color of soft moonlight, and her eyes were large and golden, like 2 drops of honey. She wore a simple white dress that hung loose on her thin frame. Her hands were bound together with a silver chain. Tae-woo stared at her. She stared back at him, but there was no hope in her eyes. Only fear. Deep, terrible fear. "What is this?" Tae-woo asked. The Emperor smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "A personal gift, Sergeant, for your great service in battle. Her name is Lyra. She is young and healthy. She will serve your needs well." Tae-woo felt his stomach turn. "I don't understand. What am I supposed to do with her?" The Emperor tilted his head. "Whatever you wish. That is the nature of a gift." Lyra did not move. She did not speak. She simply stood there, trembling like a leaf in a storm. Tae-woo noticed that her lips were pressed tightly together, as if she was trying very hard not to cry. "Take her away," Tae-woo said. "I don't want this kind of gift." The Emperor's silver eyes went wide. "You refuse. But Sergeant, she is the finest we could offer. Young, pure. Her flesh is—" "Stop." Tae-woo held up his hand. His voice was hard now, like steel. "I said no." But the other officers stepped forward. General Kim, a large man with gray hair and cold eyes, put his hand on Tae-woo's shoulder. "Accept the gift, Sergeant. It would be rude to refuse. We need to keep the peace." Tae-woo looked at the general. Then he looked at Lyra. The girl had not moved. She was still shaking, her golden eyes fixed on the floor. He had seen that look before. On the faces of prisoners. On the faces of the dying. It was the look of someone who had already given up. "Fine," Tae-woo said quietly. "I accept." The ceremony continued, but Tae-woo heard none of it. His mind was spinning with questions. What was he supposed to do now? He was a soldier, not a slave owner. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. When the ceremony ended, a Vulcan servant led Lyra to Tae-woo's quarters on the ship. The room was small and simple, just a bed, a desk, and a window that showed the stars outside. Lyra walked inside and immediately went to the far corner. She sat down on the cold metal floor. pulled her knees to her chest, and wrapped her arms around herself. She made herself as small as possible, like she was trying to disappear. Devour stood in the doorway, watching her. He did not know what to say. "You can have the bed," he said finally. "I'll sleep on the floor." Lyra looked up at him. Her golden eyes were wet with tears she refused to let fall. She said nothing. "Are you hungry?" Devour asked. "I can get you some food." Still nothing. Just a terrible, silent stare. Devour sighed. He walked to his desk, pulled out a small package of dried fruit, and placed it on the floor near Lyra, not too close. He did not want to scare her more than she already was. "Eat when you're ready," he said. "I won't hurt you. I promise." Lyra's eyes moved to the food, then back to him. For a moment, something flickered in her gaze. Confusion, maybe, or disbelief. Devour sat down on the bed and removed his boots. His feet ached. His whole body ached. He lay back and stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the ship's engines. In the corner, Lyra remained still. She did not touch the food. She did not sleep. She simply watched him, waiting for something terrible to happen. In her mind, she was already dead. Her people had told her stories about humans since she was a child. Terrifying stories. Humans were monsters, they said. They had teeth like knives and hunger that never ended. They ate their enemies. They consumed the weak. When the Emperor chose her as a gift, she knew what it meant. She was food, nothing more. The human soldier would wait until he was hungry, and then he would devour her. That was the way of things. So she waited. Every breath might be her last. Every moment of silence was just the calm before the storm. But the human did not attack. He did not even look at her with hungry eyes. He just lay there, breathing slowly, until he fell asleep. Lyra watched him for hours. She watched his chest rise and fall. She watched his face relax, the hard lines softening into something almost gentle. She did not understand. When the ship's lights dimmed to signal night, Lyra finally reached for the dried fruit. She picked up one piece with trembling fingers and put it in her mouth. It was sweet. So sweet it almost made her cry. She ate slowly, never taking her eyes off the sleeping human. And in the darkness of that small room, surrounded by stars, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong about everything. But fear is a powerful thing. And hope is dangerous. So Lyra pushed the thought away, curled tighter into herself, and prepared to die.